Well, welcome everyone to this
morning.
edition of Morning Coffee, Cherry Hill, New Jersey,
Yep.
RBN Television.
Yes, sir.
Joe Osmendi with Bob Goldstein.
Bob Goldstein.
And you know, Bob, this is going to be one in a series of experts we have all the time. We do
Yeah.
the expert series, right?
Yes.
And this is going to be a very special one, too, that's very timely right now.
Oh, it is.
And it's part of the Workcred credentialing and certification system.
Yes.
That's their series that we're doing this. And we're going to have a special guest to talk about, is going to talk about chain management supply.
Yeah,
Right?
very interesting
Okay.
topic.
Yeah, welcome to two people here. As usual, Roy Swift, who's Executive Director of Workcred, and our special guest, Mark Imfeld, who's Director of Strategic Partner Development for ASCM. Is that correct?
That's correct, Joe. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you
Morning,
much.
Morning.
Thank you guys for joining us. I mean, you know, we all hear about the problem with chain supply and change management, et cetera. So, Mark, why don't you address the issue on a whole so people can understand exactly what you deal with all the time?
Sure. Thank you, Joe. Yeah, the Association for Supply Chain Management, we're the world's largest supply chain organization. And what we see from our members, both corporate and individuals, is just a disruption at every single phase, Joe. And it really started the last few years with the horrible pandemic that we've all been dealing with. And it really made many companies realize that the resiliency is very fragile. So it's one of the things that we've been working on very diligently over the last few years is with our corporate partners and our individual members, diving into the needs of those organizations and identifying places that they need to really bolster their resiliency. And it could be everything from workforce development, it could be strategic sourcing, it could be various places along that supply chain, but it's something that is of high priority. And frankly, Joe, we see it every day in the news, whether it's big ships stuck in little canals.
Yeah.
This morning I saw a story on the national news around there's a bicycle shortage. So, kids that are out heading into the summer months are unable to find some of their bicycle parts. So it really does affect everything with respect to the products and things that we rely on our day-to-day basis. So it's, very disruptive.
You know, that's interesting. We talked about bicycles. I was going to go buy my son a bicycle. I went into Walmart, and there were little kids' bikes. There were maybe 10, 15 bikes. There was no adult bikes. The second and top row and the second row were completely empty. Two Walmarts.
Yep.
So now I know why.
Exactly.
I was just going to mention, I just read recently that 94% of the Fortune 1000 say they have a disruption in their supply chain. That's an amazing figure.
Yeah.
And that's why Workcred is looking toward organizations like the American Supply Chain Association to provide the certifications and continuing ed that is so important for us to try to work our way out of this issue.
Yep, for sure, Roy. And that's one of those pieces that we uncover most of the time is really when we look at supply chain resiliency, it does come down to workforce development. It's people in these positions.
Yeah.
We can automate only so much so far, but at the end of the day, you still need people in these places to help support those enterprises and those activities. And really, that's really kind of the bedrock of our organization is making sure that the folks who receive our credentialing, our certifications, really are ready to work on that day one, Roy. So yeah, that's a good point. The resiliency with respect to workforce development, it's a huge issue right now.
Now, how are you attracting people to become certified for any part of the supply chain management? Can you go through with us, Mark?
Sure, Joe. So we have numerous opportunities. We have our here in North America, we have our chapter network. We have a entire group of folks who are volunteer to really get individuals, absorbed in the supply chain career, if you will. We have our for-profit partners, and it's our traditional training models as well. Some of our academic partners as well. And really, they throw a very wide net. They want to make sure that the general public in their regions or their geographical footprint are aware of these positions. We have our ASCM Foundation as well. It does a lot of great work in the workforce development space, both here domestically and abroad. But really, Joe, there are so many open positions right now in the space. And what we found is, at the back end of the individuals coming through our organization to receive their certifications and their training and their workforce development skills, it really does lead to family sustaining wages. That's a really big clarion call of our organization that you can really be with us kind of for life. So whether it's a continuing learning process, or if it is on that chapter side where you want to give back and have a mentoring opportunity and really have that professional development group, it's a huge value add for some of the folks in the general public where maybe they found themselves displaced 6 months ago, even today, and they've lost that professional network, Joe. And how do they go back into maybe a new field that has family sustaining wages, but they still need to have that networking opportunity? Because we all know that process through your career, it's very important of your professional network and how to grow that and make those connections. And that's something that our organization really does excel at, because it really is a true membership-based association. So not only will folks receive that training and those certifications, but also it helps them along that lifelong journey. And that's really the net that we throw, Joe, is making sure that individuals are keenly aware of all of the opportunities and all the possibilities afforded to them based upon a fantastic career in supply chain management. Because it's really an evolving space, high level of technology, huge network. Almost every single enterprise has some sort of a supply chain function in there. So it's really just making folks in the general public aware of these types of roles and open positions that we can help support that process through our various network of folks.
Yeah, this is the ideal credential. The federal government and the state governments are all saying we need to find credentials that is a short pathway to good jobs. This is one of the primary examples that people need to look at. I know, Mark, your prerequisites are pretty flexible too. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, if you could imagine, thank you, Roy. If you could imagine, a pathway, we really have solutions that'll fit that individual person or that corporate entity looking to train up some of their incumbent workers at any level that they are. Everything from that very basic entry level position, maybe right out of high school, all the way up through something that would almost be at an MBA level. So from a prerequisite standpoint of all of our certifications, we only have one, our CSCP, that does have that educational prerequisite of an undergraduate degree and or 5 years of 3 to 5 years of work experience within the supply chain space. So very approachable, Roy. Again, it's the opportunity for folks to enter into these positions like that. It's not a full 4-year type of an experience where you need to pause your life and really invest and go backwards as far as a timing perspective with respect to your education. We're a professional network, so we've really hit into that sweet spot of working professionals or people that are trying to get into this space and can really access our body of knowledge and become successful in their supply chain career as soon as possible. Because like you said, Roy, the corporate enterprises that we represent on our membership side, these people need the positions filled yesterday. This isn't a situation that we can map out some kind of a long-term curriculum, let's invest in a 3 to 5 year program. We need folks to fulfill these orders and get this stuff going today, to help with that resiliency. So yeah, the prereqs, very approachable, Roy. We're really dialed into making sure that the most amount of people can enter into this career space is day one, as soon as they can.
Nice.
Well, what's very interesting is, as you mark, is the fact is there's all kinds of different areas that people can get into and at all different levels. So you can go to entry level to anything and advanced level also. And again, as Roy and I have discussed in the past, if you don't have to spend 3 to 5 years and not knowing if your advanced degree is going to work for you or not, this is something that can be done fairly quickly, depending on what curriculum they're choosing, right? And the fact is that you can enter their workforce almost immediately, so to speak.
Correct, Joe. And I think that's really, again, the benchmark of our organization is really that job task analysis. So we build our, whatever solution set that an individual or a corporation is looking to deploy, and mention that kind of that pathway, that stair step, if you will. Whatever entry point that happens to be, it's all based on job task analysis. So we go through the process of investigating, interviewing, surveying thousands of people, thousands of organizations to say, what will the individual that sits for this open position need to know on day one? And that's really the benchmark. That's where we start with, Joe. So we want to make sure that whether it is an advanced, somebody in the C-suite or someone in an executive vice president, director, someone at that really high level leadership, all the way down to that entry level, we want to make sure that our content, really aligns with the person that's going to be doing that position on day one. And that's really the bedrock of our organization, is that body of knowledge over the, almost 60 years, making sure that the folks align to those open positions, because we listen to the employer market heavily around what those needs happen to be. And again, it leads to success for our members and success for our certificates for sure.
Yeah, and this is another, for those who are in the military that may be listening today, this is a great transition credential from out of the military if they've worked in supply and in some way they have gained some experience and want to make a transition to a very successful civilian job. So those in the military should look at this area very closely.
That'd be great.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
There's a lot of overlap with the military, just from a perspective of, they have the competencies, they have the knowledge and the skill, and it's just quite literally translating that into a civilian space. Because obviously corporate enterprises speak and operate at a different level of the military, but it's essentially similar as far as what the competencies are in those day-to-day types of roles.
So is this something the information could be given to, let's say, retirees coming up for retirement out of the military? Or they have to, if they don't know about this, they have to stumble upon it or hear it somehow? Wouldn't it be great if the military had this information as part of a packet, retirement package? Say, hey, take a look at this when you get out, depending on where you're going. Yeah,
for sure, Bob. And we do qualify for some of those veteran supporting activities. As far as Army Cool is a big one.
Right.
Some of the GI Bill, qualifies for our training. So, to that point, Bob, I think it's more along the lines of a marketing effort than it is, functionally, because if these folks are aware of it, and we do rely on our network, like I said, of our chapters, and some of our academic partners really do, a lot of heavy lift around that military piece. But it's something that we're looking to grow into, because the amount of open positions for the active duty military as they exit their career, with the whatever branch of the military that they happen to be in, and they translate out into the civilian space. And how do we make sure we're aligned, helping them align to a future, which is financially rewarding, family supporting, and really they can grow for the rest of their career within the supply chain space. So that's a good point with the military.
Sure.
Yeah, and the other thing we haven't talked about is those who already have that certification, but they have a recertification requirement. And so the employers benefit for those that they have who are already certified, but they have a mandatory updating function, because all certifications must have recertification. Maybe, Mark, you could talk a little bit about that.
Sure, Roy. Yeah, that's, again, we keep on that continual cycle of improvement, quality assurance, going back through to make sure the curricula of our content is really up to date. And that's the value add for the employers. So as the employer looks and says, hey, maybe I've hired this person 10, 15 years ago, we want to make sure that they stay relevant, they stay up to date. And the certification really is the mechanism for that process, because you're not necessarily going to go back to receive your undergrad 3 or 4 times concurrently. So it's a situation where, what is your kind of your Rosetta Stone touch point to be able to go back and make sure that you're relevant, you're completely up to date with the terms, the processes, whatever that happens to be to support that enterprise. And to your point, Roy, the ROI of that investment from the corporate standpoint really is the resiliency of your supply chain, because now you have individuals that are supporting your organization that are highly skilled. It folds well into retention type programs and professional development type programs that they may have within the 4 walls of their enterprise, as well as just standard training. It just keeps their enterprise humming, use the cliche of all cylinders, but it's that process, because they have to go back and recertify. They also have to stay relevant with some of their maintenance points. So there's many, many touch points to make sure that the folks who hold our certifications really is, as cutting edge as they possibly can be.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's really interesting about that is with the continual education piece in the certification process, you're always going to have job security too. Your job is not going to become obsolete. And I think that's an important factor.
Yeah.
That is important.
Exactly, Joe. And I think that's some of the great work that Roy's doing, not only in his space, but also at Workcred, is validating some of that process over the period of an individual person's lifetime. what is the value of having those folks certified over a period of 30 years? And I think, the data is starting to show that it really is valuable within that continuing education / certification, micro-credential, whatever tag we'd want to put on that. It really is beneficial to the individual over their entire lifetime. I think the data is definitely supporting that.
Yeah.
That's
Workspace.
the unique characteristic, Joe, of certifications, is that an employer can be ensured that their person is continually updating unless they lose their certification.
Right.
Right.
And so that's an incentive for them to do that. And frankly, this is something relates to our previous videos, is that this is an opportunity for the higher education community to support certification bodies in regard to providing courses that relate to the recertification requirements. And it's helpful to the university, it's helpful for the individual, it is helpful to ASCM in this way. It's a win-win for everybody.
Yep, that's been a huge effort on our side. We've been contacted by numerous colleges and universities. We're really developing those relationships. We have numerous already in place, but I think the influx of that, exactly what you just called out, Roy, it's that value add of, can a new graduate leave the academy with their academic credential and that industry recognized certification? And it becomes really that 1-2 punch for their employment capabilities. What really will set apart your student, your graduate, as compared to the next university in the next state over, in the next community over, whatever that looks like. And it becomes a competitive advantage, not only for the program, but also especially for the student, because then that new graduate has, like I said, that 1-2 punch of a industry recognized certification and their undergrad or associate or master's degree.
Sure.
And on the other end of the spectrum, people that are just graduating in high school, for instance, maybe don't want to go to college, don't have the capabilities of doing that. There may be poor students, whatever. And also it might be a financial burden for them and their families. So this is an excellent way for them to get into the workforce very quickly and have a good paying job that's going to be basically stable over the next year, 10, 20, 30
That's a
years.
great point, Joe. That is.
Yeah,
And
for
you mean-
sure, Joe. And what we've actually seen too is many folks in that scenario, they receive their first position in their enterprise, they work their way up, and then they come to that magical point where to take that next step from a promotional standpoint, they
Right.
actually do need that college degree in some cases. And then they leverage that employer's employee tuition reimbursement, obviously if it's offered. But we see those stories all the time. They say, I went out into the workforce, I forego my college education, start with that position, and then they revisit college, and then they engage that higher ed university or community college, whatever it looks like, and then they're able to leverage those tuition reimbursement funds, which also helps some of the financial burden for that individual. So we see quite a bit of that as well, Joe. So it's a bit of that. Again, it's the 1-2 punch for the individuals engaging with our organizations, engaging with supply chain programs at colleges and universities. And the intersection point usually happens somewhere along the way between those two entities. So yeah, it's something that we see quite a bit, Joe.
That's why we think the project that we're doing with the National Student Clearinghouse to look at successful career pathways by using third-party data that's independent and can show that in many respects, certifications may be stimulating post-secondary education, which is what we think is really important, is that credentials facilitating one another, and it's the old adage, the sum is greater than its parts, and being able to put credentials together or credentials in a pathway such as at ASCM in this regard. So the benefits are tremendous, and we hope in the future, doing more research, that we'll have the data to prove it, not just us professing it in this regard.
Barometer.
Well, the data will come because it makes sense. And like we've always talked about, certification is only as good as what it's backed by, So this credential is going to last for a long, long time.
Yep.
Good point, Joe.
It's a lifetime. It's a lifetime,
Yeah.
Joe. I mean, you have to recertify, but when I say a lifetime,
Right.
it allows that individual member or that corporate member to engage with our community for a lifetime. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this is such an important thing, and I'm so glad we had you on, Mark, as part of the Workcred series of certification and credentialing, because this is only going to get bigger.
Yeah.
And it's only going to get better for people. And what I'd like you to do, we're at part of the program right now, I'd like you to take and just look into the camera and tell people how they can reach you and who should call you.
Yeah.
Sure, fantastic, Joe. And for the best place to reach us is at ascm.org. We are the world's largest and oldest association for supply chain management. You can reach us at our website, whether it's if you're an individual looking for more information, if you're a corporation looking to bolster some of that resiliency, if you are a training partner or a college or university and want to learn more, please visit ascm.org.
Very interesting.
Yeah, this is just an example, Joe. We're going to be bringing some other certification bodies in the future in this series to you that we think are crucial also. And this is a primary example, and we're just so enthused about what ASCM is doing in the credentialing community, and are here to support them in any way we can.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah, that's such an important thing, and this whole Workcred series has been just so well developed and everything. And we've had such great people like Mark on there that are introducing these things to people that really need this information to make everything get it out of this pandemic and get back to a new normal. Let's put it like that. For a new normal, where you can start. You can't turn back the clock to hands of time, but you can always rewind the clock.
Exactly.
And that's where we are.
Lifeline.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on Morning Coffee today. Thank you for watching it. Stick around for the next experts coming up with Workcred, and have a great day and stay safe out there.
Mark, Roy, thank you.
Thank you both, gentlemen. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a great day.
And we'll take a quick